Welcome back, everyone. For those of you that weren't in the earlier sessions in this room, I'm Bernie Mangialeo, Vice President with CGI. I run our Pittsburgh office. The rest of you, I apologize for having to hear that 3 times now. Anyways, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Raul Valdes-Perez, CEO and co-founder of OnlyBoth Incorporated. And he's going to talk to us about big data plus AI push, leading to giving push-button organizational improvement. Sorry, Raul.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about organizational improvement. First, let me pose a question. How do organizations improve? Organizations or entities in general, how do they improve? Sometimes even individuals. Well, one way they improve is spontaneously. People aspire to do better, sometimes to do worse, but organizations improve spontaneously. But how do they improve systematically? Well, there are a few different philosophies on how they can improve systematically. You can have the head boss of everything decree that all metrics will go up by 20% over the next year. That's one approach. So command everyone, improve 20%, and we're going to measure you. That's one approach. Maybe if you're the head of the, never mind. Another approach is a more science-based. I've heard this from people who worked at Alcoa. You understand the science or the physics or the chemistry of some process and ask yourself, why isn't it reaching its theoretical limit? And you figure out what the theoretical limit is, and then you try to improve it in order to approach that theoretical limit. Maybe that works in very science-oriented cases, certainly not in the vast majority of human experience. So what are some other ways that organizations improve? Well, there is another way, and it's called benchmarking. Here's what I mean by benchmarking. Benchmarking is a process whereby an organization or an entity compares itself to peers in order to understand how that organization is doing and where it could improve. So benchmarking to me is a process. Some people use the word benchmarking as a noun sometimes, whereas what they really mean by benchmark is some target, some aspirational target. So benchmarking here, for the purpose of this talk, is a process. So you compare yourself against other individuals who are like you and figure out how you're doing. Great idea. Great idea for organizational improvement. But what has held it back? 2 things have held it back. One is a lack of automation, which has further consequences when you don't automate. So you can talk more about what a lack of automation implies in terms of drawbacks or holding something back. Second problem that has held this great idea of benchmarking back is a lack of data. So apart from the lack of automation and the lack of data, it's a great idea, right? So we are a company about a year and a half old. We just went to market this summer. And we claim to have solved the automation part, not the data part. And we'll get to that later. So that's what's held it back. I want to draw an analogy to the days of information seeking before there were search engines. Can anybody remember going to a library and expressing to the librarian one's need for information about World War II Germany or something? Oh, World War II Germany, that's in the history section. Go to the back of the library and over to the right. And that was a process. And that was not an automated process, and that had a lot of drawbacks. Need I remind you what the drawbacks are? No, but I'll do so anyway. There are a lot of books in the library, and you have human limitations of time and attention, so you look at some of the books. And of course, even if you open a book, you can't instantly grasp all the books. You do have an index constructed in the back, but let me not belabor it. A lot of drawbacks to that process. So in the pre-automation days, there were all kinds of inefficiencies, and then search engines came along that largely automated that process. You could express a query, and the search engine would return, say, the N or the 10 most relevant or most interesting results. Did the search engine come back and tell you what to do with that information? No. There's a lot of talk about actionable these days. I don't think what search engines returned or return is actionable. It's more action-provoking, perhaps, or maybe thought-provoking. So it returns insights, and then it's up to you to carry out the action, the appropriate action, based on what was returned. So we went to market this summer with a benchmarking engine. I think it's a new concept based on a new technology, and also it's now a service since we've gone to market. As one measure of the novelty of the concept, as soon as we got the idea for this phrase, we went on the web, and benchmarkingengine.com was not taken. And there was no trademark even remotely like this. It's kind of generic to trademark it, but kind of a new concept. So our goal is to enable data-rich businesses to offer benchmarks internally for their own purposes, for customer success purposes, or to their own end customers, in order for their end customers to understand how they're doing and where they could improve compared to everybody else. At scale. At scale means that's where the push button comes up, even though the title got mangled a little in the program. At push button scale, that means you get, with the same effort as needed to benchmark one entity, you can benchmark 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000. So by that, at scale. What's the status quo these days? The status quo these days is largely a manual process. You call in a benchmarking expert, and they ask you a bunch of questions to reduce the problem to human scale. Human scale means, okay, gee, tell me what your corporate goals are, and they better be few. Okay, thank you. Now tell me some KPIs that you're concerned with, and gee, they better be few. Okay, great. Now tell me who you consider your peers to be, and they better be few. Okay, thank you. And now we're going to get some data, draw a picture, put you as a red dot, and that's your benchmark. Okay, so that's the largely manual process. There's a little bit of automated process, but it doesn't go much beyond that. That's kind of the status quo. We have an article, I'm getting a little bit ahead of the game, but we have an article published about a month ago in Harvard Business Review that examines precisely the status quo in benchmarking, where it falls short and how automation really helps you do it right. I brought a few copies of the article. I'll just leave it here for after the session in case anybody wants it. Or you can go off our homepage and you can access the article right from there. So there are two ways to express what the goal for this company is. Number one, we want to do for benchmarking what search engines did for information seeking. Information seeking is very broad. Benchmarking is a more narrow concept. But we want to do for benchmarking the process what search engines did for the process of information seeking. Now, this is all blah, blah, blah so far, but it gives you a little bit of background. I'm going to jump directly to a demo. How's that? Off our homepage, we took the benchmarking engine software and obtained 2 federal open data sets in order to show you how benchmarking works. One federal data set is from hospitals, so all hospitals in the country. You can type in the name of the hospital where you were born or that's in your neighborhood and ask the benchmarking questions, which I'll show you in a minute. Another one is to private college finances, not how many alumni reach the NFL, but stuff that a CFO would love, and a little bit less exciting than hospitals. So I'm going to show you the hospitals one. Okay, so I'm now going to proceed from the more general and abstract to something more concrete. If you go to our hospital's benchmarking showcase, pointed to off our homepage, you'll get something like this. Updated, blah, blah, blah. Actually, it was updated today with brand new, fresh data from the federal government, together with some other advances. So this screenshot is a little bit late, but basically it looks like that. At the upper right is something that we did trademark. A sentence is worth 1,000 data. That should make you think of a picture is worth 1,000 words. We claim that a sentence is worth 1,000 data. Okay, so you can type in any hospital there, or start typing in a hospital, and then let the autocomplete do its job and click on a hospital. Now, I could type in a Pittsburgh hospital, but that's too delicate for this audience. So I'm going to go way to the West Coast and pick another hospital. So I start typing in Stanford, and then that gives me the autocomplete. And no, not Stanford, Kentucky, which I didn't even know about. I'm going to click on Stanford Hospital in you-know-where. Okay? Stanford Hospital, it's got to be a pretty good hospital, right? Affiliated with Stanford University. So I'm going to click on that one, and it takes me to an output. So I'm going to wait a few seconds for you to look at the output. The first thing to notice is that we have, after deep study of benchmarking, of what people have written about benchmarking and what the goals of benchmarking are, we came across whoops, which is the pointer? I don't want to click on the wrong thing. You know what? I brought my own pointer. I'm going to use that in order not to mess up. So you see those 3 questions on the left there. Those are the 3 questions that our research revealed to be the fundamental questions that benchmarking seeks to answer. How is this entity doing? Where could it improve? And who or what, depending on anonymization, what is best in class? Those are the 3 core questions that benchmarking seeks to answer. I've run these questions by a lot of people who do benchmarking. They say, yeah, those are the questions. The skill is in answering them, but those are the questions of benchmarking. So here it found 29 things to say about Stanford, which is a great hospital, about how is this hospital doing. The answers to that Q1 question typically are neutral or good things. A lot of good things to say about Stanford, including that they have the lowest rate of bad things that split open among all the hospitals in the country, which are 4,803 at last count. Okay, cool. They're a great hospital. Let's see where it could improve. Such a great hospital. Could they possibly improve? So I click on that. Now, let me pause a few seconds, let you read it. By the way, this is all written by software. This is all automated, right? No human being is writing these things. There are 500,000 insights. No human being wrote them. So what is it saying? Of all the hospitals whose patients think as highly of them as Stanford's patients do, Stanford's has the most complaints about noise at night. Okay? Something's wrong there. That's a pretty elite peer group. No human being would ever think of it, really, that peer group at the bottom of that sentence. And Stanford's has the most problem with noise at night. Does this tell you what action to take? No. In that Harvard Business Review article, it conjectures a CEO of Stanford Hospital reading that sentence and having one of 3 reactions. Well, we're profitable, we're prestigious, and we have great weather. Who cares about a little noise? That's one reaction. Second reaction is, I can't understand. No, second reaction is, well, we've had construction nearby at night over the last year, and it's going to finish soon, so the problem's going to go away. I'm not going to worry about it. Third reaction is, I can't think why this is happening. I'm going to ask our COO to look into it and report. Why should we be at the bottom of this peer group? Okay. Anyway, that's answer to question 2. Where could we improve? Which typically tells you bad or partially bad, ambivalent things. Okay. And that's what these smiley faces. This is an ambivalent face, partly smiling, partly frowning. All right. That's fine. And oh, by the way, in case this is a little bit hard to understand, you could click on Visualize, which will give you a dot diagram to help you interpret this. So this axis is patients who said, yeah, they would definitely recommend the hospital. Stanford is way out here, right? This is the peer group. Everybody whose patients would recommend the hospital as much as Stanford's patients do. Well, Stanford is at the bottom of this, along this y-axis, about noise at night. So Stanford is alone here. And if you online, if you can click on any of these and see who this guy is and who this guy is, and et cetera. So this is a complement to the textual description that explains what the problem is. Okay, so we're back here. We had just clicked on Visualize. Now let's look at the third question here. What's best in class? A little bit different. Here you have to give it one more piece of information. What's best in class? Along what dimension it's going to ask us. So it gives a bunch of dimensions that are actionable, including all kinds of bad things like killing your patients and excess readmission ratios and all that stuff. So here, let's pick one, which is excess readmission ratio for pneumonia patients, which is here at the bottom. And Medicare.gov cares a lot about excess readmission. So we click on that and then click on Apply. And it takes us to this. It says that this other hospital in San Luis Obispo has the lowest excess readmission ratio among the 20 hospitals most similar to Stanford that likewise are in California. All these things are configurable. You tell it, yeah, compare it to the 20 most similar, but also throw in that those 20 most similar have to be in California. All these things are configurable. All this text is generated by the software in English. So this is basically our reconstruction of the process of benchmarking. Benchmarking consists of answering those 3 questions. And this is all automated. You can see the same thing for the college financials. You can type in the name of your private college and get similar things. Whoop, wrong one here. Okay, this is my last slide. So who's going to benefit from this? And that's the next topic. So remember earlier that benchmarking has been held back by two problems. One is lack of automation, the other is lack of data, okay? So we have the automation part, we solve that. So we don't want to solve the data part. We want to deal in a customer relationship with organizations that have the data. One organization has the data. And historically, to get data, you have to beg, borrow, bribe, whatever, steal data. We don't want to deal with that problem. So where out there in the world are there organizations that have all the data that is needed in order to help organizations improve? Well, cloud-based vendors, they serve their B2B. We prefer B2B. They serve customers. I'm a cloud-based vendor. Everybody in this room is my customer. And if I offer a non-utility-like service, that means that probably all of you are interested in knowing how you're doing, where you could improve in relation to the business process that I support. So we want to enable cloud-based vendors or Internet of Things vendors to offer those kinds of insights to their end customers or internally for customer success purposes. That's one market. As an aside, in my readings of the Internet of Things, typically people are focused on two things in data mining. One is predictive maintenance, and the other is bringing information back, insights back, so you can design the next version of your product. Nobody talks about benchmarking style insights for the end customers of those Internet of Things services. Whoops, not yet. Third-party administrators. I'm a claims processor. I do outsource claims processing for big companies that don't want to bother with this themselves, but they self-insure. So basically, any third-party administrator, they get data as a byproduct of offering their services. Again, their end customers would like to know, how are we doing in terms of our claims in our company? Retailers. I'm a large retailer. I have 1,000 store locations. I'd like to know how each location compares to every other location. Same, you get performance data, HR data, cleanliness data, customer survey data, wait times, and you can benchmark all of that. And in the future, something we'd like to do, companies that have large internal sales forces, you have 1,000 salespeople, you'd like to benchmark each one against each other and get objective insights rather than subjective insights. Okay, the input to this is merely a spreadsheet of data. The rows are the entities that you want to benchmark, hospitals or whatever. And the columns are attributes, numeric, symbolic, yes-no attributes, or even set-valued attributes, which is kind of unusual in data mining. That's the input. Then we also configure the software, and we push a button. Update the software, the configuration once a quarter, push a button again. No dashboards. You don't have to know what questions to ask. If you're a retailer and you have 1,000 locations, you don't need a data scientist at every store. Okay? All you got to do is type in the name of your store, and click on a question. We've thought through the questions already, and we provide the answers in perfect English. Okay? No complex BI. Our goal, another way to say our goal, is universal betterment of organizations through data and through this kind of artificial intelligence. Off our homepage, so those are the two showcase demos. There's a Harvard Business Review article, a few copies here. We also have a TechCrunch article that came out 2 weeks ago. This is not machine learning technology, by the way. This is a branch of AI called Machine Discovery. This TechCrunch article's title is Machine Learning versus Machine Discovery, explains the difference and its impacts for business. Am I out of time?
17 seconds.
17 seconds. What insightful thing. Oh, questions. Any questions? No questions. Okay, thanks for your attention.